Thanks for meeting us today. It's a great honor for us to have you in Germany. I think it's the first time.
Yes, it's my first time in Germany.
Okay, and what are your impressions in terms of...
So far, so good.
Okay.
I flew in yesterday.
Okay.
And so my only German experience has been my hotel. But I did go to dinner last night with my editor. So we had some traditional food from the Leipzig area.
Okay, and do you have any idea or plans to stay in Germany any longer, or do you want to come back?
Oh, I do want to come back.
Okay.
My wife really wants to visit Germany, and so I plan to be back maybe next summer.
Okay.
It's a ways off, but that's when I'm planning to come back. So yes, there's lots to see in Germany.
Okay, then I'm going to start. So in the Stilhard and in the Rhythmatist series, the true heroes are the most normal persons of all, and well, this is pretty awesome. And how did you get that idea, or did it just develop itself?
So my books normally are about people who discover a magical talent and learn to use it. I realized I was doing this a little too much, and I don't want to become a parody of myself, where I am too often doing the same thing. And the Rhythmatist grew out of me wanting to tell a story about somebody who didn't have magic talent, but lived in a world of lots of people who do. And that was mostly to challenge myself as a writer, to do something different. Steelheart was a reaction to superhero films. There are so many of them. I wanted to do something that was a contrast to them. And this is a story where people start getting superpowers, but only evil people get them. And I liked that idea because it seemed kind of counter to a lot of the films that were being made.
And do you have any favorite superhero?
Boy, there's so many. As a kid, the comic book series I read the most was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I don't know if they count as superheroes, but they are the ones I read.
Of course, yes.
Yes. I've always loved Superman, particularly when they focus on his normal life with superpowers. So the old Lois and Clark TV show, or even Smallville and things like this, I really, really enjoy. I haven't enjoyed the new movies as much.
You have several fantasy worlds and settings. How do you get together with all of them? Because they are very different to each other. You have got a Western setting, then you have superheroes, fantasy. How do you get together with all of them?
Yeah, it's not as hard as you think, because the way my process works, when I finish a book, I usually want to do something very different.
Okay.
It's like eating cheese. When you eat some good cheese, you usually take a piece of fruit in between, right? The fruit cleanses your palate, is what we say. It makes you refreshes your taste buds. And that's the same thing for me. So when I finish an epic fantasy book like this, I immediately want to write something very different, like a Steelheart book or the Rhythmatist or something, so that I can refresh myself and not get burned out on doing the same thing.
Okay,
So, and as you told us before, you have also a wiki.
Yes, I do.
Can you tell something about it?
Well, it's very secret. The fans have a wiki that you can go read called The Coppermind. That's what they've put together. I have a secret one on my computer and my assistant's computer, so don't steal my computer. And this contains all of my outlines and world building for the various books, mostly the Cosmere. It doesn't do non-Cosmere books. And it is very detailed in some places and has big holes in other places where I haven't gotten around to putting it out of my brain into the wiki yet.
How do you even get a professional writer? What are your inspirations? And many German fantasy authors just told me that they've got a role play past because of the world building and so on. It's good inspiration to start writing. Do you have something in common, or how do you start?
I did role play quite a bit when I was younger. I don't have time right now. Certainly that's a bit of an inspiration. I wouldn't go to it as my first. Usually my first inspirations for books are that I see what everyone else is doing, and I ask, what is nobody doing? What is the story nobody's telling? Where is the hole in the storytelling?
Okay.
The Mistborn books came from that. I told you earlier that it came from me realizing a lot of epic fantasy has a similar story. young hero goes on a quest, gathers a band of unlikely followers, and defeats a Dark Lord.
Hero's journey.
A hero's journey
Yes.
with a Dark Lord and all of this stuff, and I wanted a counter story to that, one where the hero had failed and the Dark Lord had won, and that was the origin of Mistborn. Steelheart, was the counter story to the superheroes.
Yes.
What if there were no Superman? And so I asked the questions, what is nobody else doing?
We just spoke about the world building, and what's fascinating to me that you have so many fantasy novels and you come up with so many different magic systems. I'm wondering, how do you come up with the magic systems? How do you set up the rules for them? And how much research do you put in?
I love wacky magic systems. That's my thing. I'm always hunting for something that's new, something, a new take often. There's nothing really new, right? Everything has been done, but you can often put your own personal spin on it and make it original. It's never been hard for me, the magic systems. I have more that I want to write books about that I don't have time for. So I'm just a lot of my inspiration comes from science, reading science books and saying, well, if I could tweak the laws of physics a little bit, it would have this effect. That would be very, very fun.
And do you have a specific procedure at writing? Do you plot everything at first and just write, or do you just write the story?
Yeah, I'm an outliner. I like to plot ahead of time. Books are usually a combination of three things. They are character, setting, and plot.
Yes.
I do a lot of world building ahead of time, so my setting. I do a moderate amount of plotting. Character, though, I find if you outline your character too much, they read very stiff. They become wooden and cardboard. And so this is the one that I discovery write, we call it, where I see how it goes, I try the character out and things like this. And often this means I have to revise my plot after I've developed the character further.
So there's always room for the character to change.
Yes, the character has control over the plot. They can change the plot. Once in a while, the character changes so much that I actually rewrite the book with a new personality of a new character in that, because that character needs a different story to be in. Oftentimes, I will just do some tryouts of characters. I will write from their viewpoint for a little while, and then set that aside and try with a different personality, and set that aside and then try with a different.
As far as I know, you are continuing the series The Wheel of Time. Is it very difficult for you to write a different series from another author?
It was very difficult. When I started working on them, one of the things I tried to do was match his writing exactly, and it didn't work very well. When I tried to write exactly like him, it felt like a caricature. I don't know if you know, that's when a sketch artist does a picture of you with exaggerated ears or whatever. I realized it was reading too much like a parody. So I backed off on trying to imitate him exactly, and then focused on the characters and said, can I get the characters to sound like themselves? What I often tell readers is, imagine a movie where the director leaves and a new director comes in, but it's the same characters, the same actors. This happened with the Harry Potter films, many different directors, and each of those films feels different, but they are still the same actors, so there's continuity. And that's what I feel like happened with The Wheel of Time. New director, so the feeling is different in my books, but hopefully the characters still feel like themselves.
So what about the world building? I love your world building, but it's really, really complex. What do you do first while creating a new world?
When I'm creating a new world, it's different for every book. Often I say the best fantasy books, the world building is done in service to the story, not the other way around. Meaning, you spend your time as a writer world building things that are important to the characters and to the plot. And so I usually am asking myself, what are the characters interested in? What are they passionate about? And what's the conflict in the world? I like each of my settings to have conflicts in them. In the Stormlight Archive, it's the storm, creating conflict, man versus nature, and things like this. With other books, it will be the religion is a source of conflict, or even linguistics and language can be a source of conflict. These sorts of things drive me in my world building to figure out which is going to work in the story.
How important are fantasy maps in your books?
I love maps in fantasy books. I think they add a lot. They are a visual way of seeing the world as being a very different and interesting place. So I tend to put a lot of them in my books. The Stormlight Archive books will often have 8 or 9 different maps spread through the book.
Come back to your characters. Do you have any friends of you that inspires you to some of the characters?
Yeah, often a friend of mine will get a cameo. A writer friend of mine is Dan Wells, and he sells very well in Germany, and he is in the second Mistborn book, standing on a wall. Everyone around him gets killed except for him. And so I do what we call cameos. Some characters are more deeply inspired by a friend. They'll go through a conflict or have a problem, and I want to build a character around them.
So what's the most important thing for a character while you're developing him or her? Is the conflict or something different?
Yeah, conflict is certainly a big part of it. I'm not sure if it's the most important, but it's a very big part. How are they in conflict with themselves? Because we all are, right? There's something inside of us that doesn't necessarily mix. The original Mistborn trilogy, Vin is a good example. Vin is somebody who is a good person, but doesn't believe anybody else is a good person. And this conflict inside of her is she doesn't want to trust anybody, and creates interesting conflict. But at the same time, there's also, what is the character passionate about? Everybody wants something. And Kurt Vonnegut said, every character should want something, even if it's just a cup of water. And I think this is true. We go through, every day, we don't wake up saying, I want to save the world. We wake up, maybe we do, maybe you do. But we wake up saying, wow, I'd really like to maybe just do this one thing. I want to get to Paris once in my life, or something like that. We have passions, and it's part of what makes us who we are. And I think this is important for characters, letting the way they see the world inspire us.
Which book of yours you would recommend for readers who haven't read any books of you?
I usually recommend that people start with the first Mistborn book. I don't know what it's called in German, because the German titles are all very distinctive and very different. But it is a good place. But if you can't find that, then the first Wax and Wayne book, Alloy of Law in English, is a really great starting point also.
So you're a fantasy writer.
I am.
Really? But if you had a chance to write in another genre, would you do that, or would you like to have this challenge?
I could at any time write whatever I feel like, and so I keep coming back to fantasy and science fiction. The only time I've done something that wasn't, I did mysteries. The Legion books, which are little, even those have some science fiction to them though. So I don't know that I will ever do something not science fiction fantasy, because I say this, fantasy, you can do whatever you want. You can have romance, mystery, you can be literary with beautiful prose, different, people do that. You can do anything you want in a fantasy book, plus you can have dragons. So why not, right? If you can do anything you want and then make it better by adding magic to it, why wouldn't you? So.
Right.
Great argument.
Do you still read any books, fantasy
Yes.
specific, or just another genre, perhaps to not get influenced?
I like to read a lot of history books.
Okay.
They're very handy, but I do love fantasy. And I recently read City of Stairs by Robert Jackson Bennett. I recently read Mary Robinette Kowal's Ghost Talkers. And so, I like to read widely everything I can get my hands on.
So speaking of influences, what are the authors you're most influenced by?
Well, obviously Robert Jordan would be a big one. I would say that Anne McCaffrey influenced me a lot. Guy Gabriel Kay influenced me a lot. Victor Hugo was a big influence on me. All kinds of different writers. I could keep going and going and going. Everything you read influences you a little bit.
Do your readers also influence your writing? So do you read reviews? Do you hear what they say and what they want? Or is it
I do. It's dangerous because you don't want to pander. You don't want your books to just be fan service. But I think if you ignore what your audience is liking, then that's not a good idea either. So there's a balance to be had where you listen to what people are liking, what people think you're doing well, what people think you're doing poorly, and you try to improve, but you also try to seek your own artistic vision without being too influenced by what the market would want.
So do you have a favorite character to write, or do you all love the same?
My favorite character to write is whoever I'm writing right now.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of a cheating answer, but it is.
And what are you writing right now?
I'm writing the third book of the Stormlight Archive. I'm doing revisions on it, so that's called Oathbringer, and it'll be out in November in English. I'm not sure about Germany. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for your time.
I appreciate it. A great deal. One of the highlights was when The Emperor's Soul won a Hugo Award.
Okay.
That moment, that's my most award-winning story. That was a wonderful night.